Hey, this is Josh with New Review, coming at you with a new review on the last half of the season of the second season of Rooster Teeth's animated series, Camp Camp. So it's been a while since we talked about it, and so there are 5 episodes. In this half of the season that we got to talk about. I'm just going to do a quick check on the thing here. Alright, so we have, the last 5 episodes of Camp Camp to talk about, and they are Gwen Gets a Job, Eggs Benefits, Space Camp Was a Hoax, Cooking Cookies, and Parents' Day. So Gwen gets a job. As we all know, in the Camp Camp universe, Gwen does not like her job at Camp Campbell, and this episode is exploring her attempts to get new jobs and how miserably she keeps on failing and blowing it in the interviews. And how she gets discouraged. Max finds out, and she opens up this huge, impossibly huge drawer of rejection letters. And Max decides, I'm going to blackmail you. And so she goes on this journey trying to find something that Max wants. And it turns out he wants his teddy bear back from the Pine Scouts. And so she goes on this big adventure trying to find it, and she helps them, the Pine Scouts, figure out how to do better in their popcorn sales, which comes into play a little bit later. And then David finds out, and David's encouraging. He gives her some advice, tells her, this stuff that you did today, you can use as an example for your next job interview. And the episode, this starts to end on a seemingly high note because David is accepting. He's understanding that this isn't Gwen's calling, this is his calling, and he loves being at Camp Campbell, but he understands that Gwen may not be the same way. And so he's really understanding. And then the episode ends with Gwen being overqualified for the position, which is fucking hilarious. So yeah. The next episode, Eggs Benefit, the entire crux is these pairings off of different groups of campers and getting prepared to hatch platypus eggs. And the pairings are Nerf and Preston, Neris and Harrison, Max and Nikki, and Neil and Space Kid, and Arid and Dolph. And they're all and it's a very interesting exploration between like the character dynamics. Neil is like super protective and won't let anyone touch it, especially Space Kid. Nerf and Preston get into this abusive relationship, create this abusive relationship where Nerf is super abusive to Preston, and I'm not smiling because I think it's funny, but like the dynamics are kind of extending from the characters' personalities. Arid and Dolph seem to be fairly lax, and their egg is the first to go. Harrison and Neris kind of go with their magic thing and trying to say, no, they're going to do fantasy, no, they're going to do... and they try to use the egg for various things, and one by one, the various eggs start to break. And at the end, there's only Max and Nikki and Neil and Space Kid's egg. And Nikki, for some weird reason, turns a little maternal. which doesn't make sense. And Max, he's usually, I don't really care. Um, and well, the only egg that doesn't really break is Nerf and Preston's, and that egg runs away, which is kind of funny, to be honest. And the entire backstory to this is Cameron Campbell is trying to use these eggs to get himself out of trouble with, because he's the Prime Minister of Thailand now, and so he's trying to get out of trouble, and it's kind of funny. Um, and the episode ends with all the eggs broken and Cameron Campbell going to Russia, which that comes into play later. The episodic nature of this series kind of is going, in this back half of the season is kind of disappearing. So yeah, that was how Eggs Benefits went. The next episode, we explore Space Kid, and I don't know if this came from something I said, I highly doubt it, or if this was something that they had planned, but we get an exploration of Space Kid, and I really enjoyed this. And originally we thought Space Kid, relatively smart, relatively intelligent, knows stuff about space. Turns out he's a freaking moron. I mean, he was the punching bag earlier, and he seemed to be a bit of a klutz, but I didn't think he was a complete moron. But that's what we find out this episode. And the whole crux is the space camp that he signed up for. It says that they actually send him to the moon and they send the footage to his parents. And so Gwen and David are trying to create this moon landing so that they don't get sued for false advertising, which is an actual thing that I'm surprised doesn't happen more often in reality. Anyways, so they're doing their best, they're doing their damnedest, and Max is trying to sabotage the whole thing, and eventually Space Kid gets sick, and he has this huge hallucination of what happens, and he actually thinks he goes to space and gets into and comes into contact with aliens, which are actually Neil and Nikki. And it's just a hugely hilarious thing, and they end up not recording it, Gwen and David, and so they just alter slightly actual moonwalk footage of Buzz Aldrin, which that also comes into play later. The next episode, the penultimate episode, is Cooking Cookies, and that there's kind of a Breaking Bad-esqueness to this episode, which I found very interesting, even though I watched bits and pieces of the series, it wasn't really my thing. But anyways, it's exploring the the Flower Scouts, and how they're trying to sell cookies, and they realize, and this is where the Pine Scouts selling their popcorn early comes into play. They come and say, "Hey, good luck with selling the cookies. We just sold our popcorn, so no one's gonna want your stupid cookies." And their garden mother, who is kind of a junkie, and they kind of take advantage of her junkiness, and they take her what she calls Mexican sugar, which is actually meth, and they add it to their cookies to make them addictive and make people want more. And eventually they get to the point where they're this huge operation and they're cutting into the Mexican drug cartels business, and they get this, they're trying to sell as many cookies as possible, raise as much money as possible, so they win the prize of going to Cancun? Anyways, to go somewhere super tropical, super nice, super touristy. And the Mexican drug cartel asks them to come and they basically beat them down and saying, "Hey, you're gonna buy these cookies so we can go to this awesome vacation spot." And it turns out the awesome vacation spot is in Mexico. I kind of knew that already. They didn't because they're not presented in as intelligent, and Sam Ireland does a great job voicing all three of the main Flower Scouts. And they get super pissed that we were doing all this work just to go to stupid Mexico. There's a bit of xenophobia with them, but they come from rich backgrounds. Anyways, and then to the season finale, which is Parents' Day. And we get to meet all of these parents, and it's actually kind of interesting. For instance, and I'm just going to go through a quick list of them, and then go through the whole gist of the episode. Harrison's parents, who I find the funniest, sent Harrison to camp to try to control his abilities because they're scared of his magicianry, which is hilarious. And those two are voiced by John Reisinger and Jen Brown, Jen Brown voices Erin, so she's regularly on the show. But they're just freaking hilarious. And then other magic kid, Neris, her mom isn't too into the LARPing, but her dad is super into the LARPing, and he comes to camp dressed in his LARPing clothes. Nerf's mom is in jail. Dolph's dad, I believe it's Dolph, is in the army, and apparently he doesn't notice the Nazi-ness, but he's complaining about his son being into art and soccer and regrets raising him on a base in Germany, which makes a lot of sense. Preston, his parents don't come, but his Gram does. Nikki's mom comes, and it's apparent that she's kind of the opposite of Nikki, and kind of looking for benefit for herself. Neil's dad is a philosophy professor, which is kind of funny because Neil's like super into science and super into A plus B C equals answer D. Whereas philosophy is a little bit more free flowing, technically. Let's see. And Aaron's dads, and that's right, I said dads, are FBI agents who are partners, LGBT. I hope they're actual partners at the agency. And Cameron comes back, and he's trying to at the beginning tried to make sure Parents' Day didn't happen, because then everyone would find out they didn't send him to space camp. And Space Kids, person who comes, Buzz Aldrin. So that joke pays off in the end. Anyways, like Space Camp or LARP Camp or whatever. But I think it goes pretty well, comedic-wise. Explore the camp. They see everything going on. The FBI agents are a little suspicious. Actually, partway through, Jeremy Farts' parents show up, and they're everything you would expect and dream about, and it's funny. And they apparently understand why they used him as a pawn to get rid of someone they didn't want in a bet with another camp. And the big crux of the episode is actually focusing on Max, the main character, of the trio. And he's paired with Gwen and David to kind of to cover until his parents show up. And the entire episode, Max is being his devious self, and they're trying to keep him from doing devious things. And it gets to the point where at the end of the day, they're presenting everything that they learned over the summer, and they get to Max, And Max's parents didn't sign him up for a specific camp. They left the activity part blank. And the entire time, David is trying to do his best to make sure this day goes off without a hitch. Cameron is also so that he doesn't end up in Super Guantanamo. Um, and and it ends on a nice note with them going out for pizza, and David having this great little monologue of saying, "Hey, I'm sorry that this sucks. I'm trying to do my best to see the good in everything, and I'm sorry for what happened." Um, and I have to say, this episode was a great performance, not only of Miles and Jason Schwartz, the guy who originally did RTA. He's a writer and director on the show. A great performance of their writing, but also a great performance done by Michael, who plays Max, and Miles, who plays David. It was probably their best performances this entire series, which is saying something, and also not saying, which is really saying something because there's a lot of episodes in the repertoire to kind of fall back on and look at. Um, Also, a funny bit: this entire episode, Nikki's mom, Candy, is trying to get close to Neil's dad, Carl, and they end up having sex on the stage. And it's revealed while Preston is up there with his grandmother, doing a little play based on Little Red Riding Hood. And Nikki's a little oblivious to what's happening, which is good. She's young. She's too young to understand what that's going on. But she basically thinks a wrestling match is going on, and it is the best reaction. um, but yeah, that was the season so far. Oh, also, David gets punched in the face by Buzz Aldrin for faking Space Kid's moon landing, and also Space Kid is named Neil. Anyways, that was the season of Camp. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited for season 3. I want to see where they're going with this because it's still a pretty new series. They're still working out a lot of the kinks, and I think they're doing really good at exploring each individual camper, but still focusing on the main characters, the main trio, or Quint, Quad, the main Quint with Max, Nikki, Neil, Gwen, and David. And I'm really excited with how they're going to explore these characters next year, especially with David being in Cameron Campbell's crosshairs. This is Joshua with New Review, signing off.